We work with 100,000 employees across 5,000 offices around the world. So we are here today to hopefully share some insights, best practices to help you make the return to office worth the commute. At the end as well, we do have a downloadable freebie. So yeah, I'm not saying stay here until the end, but there is a bit of an incentive there. So hashtag GBRTO, the Great British Return to the Office. How do we continue to make this a great experience with everyone? So it's the end of the day. I see quite a few people with coffee, so we are going to do a short energizer, and I don't mean get up and start jumping around. We're going to talk about some hybrid statistics, and there are prizes on offer here as well. So the first statistic I would like us to take a guess at, on a survey by Business Transition 360, what percentage of employees said they would like to be in the office full time again? 0%. Okay. Does anyone think higher than 0%? 9%.
I'll go to 10.
10? 20? 20? 3%. Someone has the chocolate. Congratulations. So our next question is, what percentage of executives think their teams should be on site? 80? 25? 50? 60? 90? 68? Yeah. Well done. The next one is, which percentage of employees are happy to go into the office but would like to work from home at least twice per week? What do we think?
85.
90? 65? You're very quiet on this side. 80, okay. 85, okay.
85 on.
The number actually is 86. Who was my 85? Okay, I'm going to give out 2 chocolates for myself. Well done.
Thank you.
And our final statistic here today is, what percentage of companies will have returned on-site by 2024, the end? And by on-site, we're talking about, we're going to have some sort of in-office policy or team days here to bring our people back in. What do we think they voted? 95, 98? 90. 90. Now, quite a few people were close there. I don't know if I have enough chocolates to throw out, but stop by the stand after and we'll make sure you get one. So we've had a bit of fun. It is time to get serious because you are here to figure out a little bit around how we can make the office work for the community. So I think a great place to start here before we dive in is actually understanding what I call the ups and downs of hybrid. So we've got the perks and we've got the drawbacks here, and I'm not going to spend too many time on the perks because I think we're probably all guessed it, right? Because people hold it less time commute, better work-life balance, and increased productivity. Does that surprise anybody? No? Good. So we look at drawbacks. Now, the top drawbacks of this survey: feeling disconnected from our teams, not having enough face-to-face interactions, having too many distractions at home. I found this super interesting. So apart from one guy who I spoke to yesterday, people didn't vote that they missed their desks. They don't miss the canteen. What they missed is that face-to-face interaction and the other benefits that brings with it. So digging a bit deeper into that again before we dive into some of the solutions. What is it about meeting colleagues they think is important? Now, they were given a number of answers in this one and they could select multiple choice. But 32% of those surveyed said meeting colleagues is important because people work better together in person. 34% said it was important because it fosters the company culture. 43% said meeting them is important because it boosts productivity. And a whopping 58% said they think meeting colleagues is important because it creates a sense of belonging. It's fascinating how things have changed because we were here last year and the conversations we were having on the booth were still very, I would say, surface level. People saying, we need to book desks, we need to book our meeting rooms. This year they're paying for it. I think they're coming to us and saying, oh, our staff are unhappy. Teams are disconnected. How do we bring them together? And it's fascinating how some of the language has changed as well, because again, we've gone from that surface level of desks and everything else to people talking about communities, tribes, Like, we want people together. So, how do we factor this in to make it worth their commute? At Deskboard, we see two core pillars present in the most successful hybrid workplaces. We've got frameworks, which are the how, and incentives, which are the why. So, starting with frameworks, who here has an expense card? Company expense card, not a personal expense card. We all have one of those. No? Okay. Can I ask you, do you have rules on how you can use your expense card? Not really, not even a great example in that. Most of us do, right? And the reason around why we have those rules is because it would potentially be chaos if we didn't, which perhaps your monthly spending on the expense card would be. But I think the mistake people make with frameworks when they reach out to us is it's not about removing the flexibility from your teams. It's about framing it, providing guidelines so people know how to work, where they can work, so they can make the best decisions for themselves, their teams, and ultimately the customers. 72% of customers surveyed by Resume Builder, I love this stat, have noticed an increase in revenue when a defined return to office policy has been set. Again, it's not there to restrict, but tell people how they can work and help them. So the incentives of the why, this is the why behind people moving from their pajamas, moving from their comfy sofas, and actually coming into the office and building and sitting with their teams. They need to have a purpose, they need to be meaningful, and they should positively contribute again towards that decision of driving people in. Hybrid working isn't the science, I think it's art. Because we're combining technology, workspaces, and flexibility for the people again to make those decisions in terms of how they can work and what's best for the customers. It's about taking our culture, leadership, and behaviours, and it does take time, patience, and practice. Where we see organisations move wrong is leaning too heavily on one pillar. If we're talking about frameworks, that might be we've rolled out a mandate and we haven't told anybody why, or what's the purpose behind it. Or the novelty on the incentive side of Beer Fridays, Pizza Tuesdays quickly wears off and all of a sudden the occupancy drops off again. What happens when we see somebody leaning too heavily on one side? Well, it all goes up and down. And ultimately, as the business, you have to start again. So we're going to talk a little bit about the frameworks and the incentives, and we'll give you one thing to do, one thing to avoid, and one thing to consider and take away from this in your own hybrid workplaces. The most common question I'm asked around frameworks, people very early in this journey, and I don't know if you've heard this, but how do we avoid the big brother? Like, how do we avoid that setup of people feeling like they're being watched? To me, this, I don't mean as an easy answer, but it's all about the visibility, the transparency, and the communication around that, because we fear things we don't understand, right? And if there's no backing, if it doesn't come from the top down, and there's not clear structure around, well, we are bringing in this policy, and here's why, here's the benefits we see, here's the benefits that we will hopefully benefit onto our customers, then people can't get behind it. So our one thing to do is transparent, top down from the leadership, and perhaps this seems obvious to some of you in the audience, but you'd be surprised at how many people reach out and we say, well, where's this coming from? Is it being driven from the top? And they say, well, no, there's just a few of us here trying to bring it up. If you really prioritise that, bringing people back to the connection, leadership has to be involved. One thing to avoid is the one-shoe-fits-all approach. We all know hybrid working has huge impacts on diversity, inclusion, and attracting some of the best talent to our workplaces. Don't just copy a framework you've seen on LinkedIn who you think might work. Talk to your people, get the insights, get the feedback, and be prepared to change, adapt, and move things. And then one thing to consider is hybrid enablement. Say if you want to make things difficult for your teams, let them figure it out for themselves. We need to do better. It's 2024. People shouldn't be using Excel to book desks and connect with their teams and try to coordinate big projects. What frameworks specifically are we talking about here? Policies, frameworks, guidelines, whatever you'd like to call them. Your teams need to know how they can work. We need to define policies. We need to define the vocabulary used internally to talk about these, the benefits, the everything else that's all involved in that. We know people miss their teams as well. So we need to prioritize team days. Again, the interactions in the office should be meaningful. We're not bringing them in because just for a hack. We could have stayed, it's all about prioritizing those days over. We've got great projects, we want to share ideas, and we really want to draw out that time there. So again, our people are leaving happy, they feel connected, they're engaged. Health and safety, another COVID challenge that we've talked about loads over the past couple of days here is, who's actually in the building, and have we thought about how do we roll out those procedures now we're in a hybrid environment? Again, the amount of people I speak to and I say, well, if something happened, God forbid it does, but if I said, if something happened, do you have a plan in place? Do we know who's in the building currently? And they said, well, we can guess. Well, there's a fire, I would yes, So again, it's around how we define these policies so we are removing the stress and we are taking some of that pressure off the people on the ground so that they can get on with other things. The big one is data. Data is one of those things where everybody wants data. Knows of it. I said, well, what do you want to do with it? You say, I don't know. I said, okay, what sort of data do you need? Just lots of data. Again, when we're looking at buildings, we can do things like CO2 and how rooms are being used. When we're looking at employees, we can talk about what teams are getting together and perhaps the positive outcomes. But again, we can have all of the data in the world, but if we don't have those clearly defined policies again on how we're going to use the data, what we want to capture, and perhaps the outcomes we're looking to see, it's useless. Incentives. So I'm running a marathon on Sunday, and after 16 weeks of training, I'll be honest, I can't be bothered. I really do not want to do it, right? And if I was the only one doing it, I would have cancelled. I'll put my hands up and I will say I would have cancelled. But 16 weeks ago, maybe I looked into the future, Mystic Mac, but I thought I probably wouldn't want to do this, so I created a group. I had a couple of friends going, and because they're one, I can't pull out. Right, I've put myself in that corner, and here we are. The incentive, it could be pride, but the incentive there for me is the group. It is the people. It is the experience. Like, I'm not going there to say I ran a marathon. I'm going there to say I did it with my pals. That experience is a takeaway, and this is the same thing with the office. I seen a quote on LinkedIn, and I can't remember the author, but somebody said people don't want to go into the office to do work they could have done in their pants at home, right? So make it meaningful. Again, we're having those incentives. We can't have pizzas, we can't have beers, but drive those team events. Really think deeply and get the input of the teams and the leadership around why are we doing this, what do we want to get out of it, and how can we as the business, how can we as leaders contribute to making those events for our teams powerful. One thing to avoid, stereotypical incentives every week. It's great to have beer Fridays, again, pizza Tuesdays, whatever it might be. It's not there for sustainable. We're not going to see people coming week in, week out to get, unless there's lots of beer. But I don't think it's going to be something that draws people back week in, week out. One thing to consider, and again, for a lot of us in here, this might seem fairly obvious, but one of our other questions we ask is, like, have you talked to your teams? How are they working? What's important to them? Like, what are their goals? No, well, we just thought it would be nice. The teams are your most important resource on the ground. I would advise anyone before we actually dive down that hybrid policy, just spending a bit of time with those people on the ground. Engage with the ones who are in the office, find out what they're taking away from it. Bring them as champions. Talk to the ones who are at home and maybe see, well, where's the gap? What are we missing as a business? Because sometimes the answer is simple, but if we don't ask, we don't know. And yes, so our content team as well have prepared a list of 50 incentives to help you with some ideas, get creative, and help bring your people back to the office. So I'm going to leave this on screen for a couple of minutes if you want to take a few pictures and scan and download it. If anyone would also like to talk a bit further with us, we are just across there, conveniently located. I'll give you a few more minutes. Folks, does anyone have any questions while we are scanning the codes? Please.
Talk about team days.
Yes.
Before I get back.
Oh.
Talk about team days.
Yeah.
What happens if all the teams want to come in on a Thursday and you've downsized your office? Have you got any ways of handling that? Because us as FMs don't always know. People don't always talk to us and say, "Oh yeah, all of the ICT team are coming in.
Yes.
All of the comms team are coming in, whatever team it may be."
Yes.
And then you find out on the day that 1,000 people have turned up and you've only got 400 desks.
Yes. That comes back to the first point around the clearly communicated policies and the guidelines, right? Because the people on the ground, if you have 1,000 people who want to come in, that is incredible, phenomenal. It's about sitting down and saying, yeah, how do we want people to work? How do we define them? So without that at the start, you will have chaos. That is what you're at. Yeah, from my side, it's always around sitting down with those team leads, the heads of the department, and mapping out, saying, well, we do have real desire of people to come in. Like, we had somebody come by our stand yesterday and say, we've downsized, and it was a terrible decision because now everybody wants to come in. We have to stop people. I'm like, well, that's incredible because some others can't get people in the door. But again, it's just about being clearly defined on the here are the days, here's the why, talking to the team and figuring out a little bit more around how does this work for you? How can we support it as a business? But just trying to spread it.
Yeah, the problem we've got is the directors tend to work in isolation of each other when they're organising this. So they'll all say, no, all of my team are coming in this day. Then you find out from someone else,
Yes.
no, all of my team are coming in that day.
No, I know, but I think that stresses the important there. We touched on it as an obvious comment, but like, it has to come from the top down and leadership behind it, because if you don't, well, you're in the situation as you are, you know. But happy to talk further if you want to stop over. Anyone else have any questions you want to shout, or are we all just dying to get out? No. No. Folks, thank you very much. Another headshot, just in case again you didn't believe it was me. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.